So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity once again to talk a little bit about biogeometry. Some of you were present last year as we started to talk a little bit about the science of biogeometry. And I think part of the audience participants last year, they are already this year again. So I hope you enjoyed the last 2 days, yesterday and today, and hopefully this short lecture about biogeometry, sharing with you the information of this science would be also enhancing and helping you to be more healthy psychologically and physically. So we are started last year to talk about the biogeometry as a model of science, which is related to very important part of the universe, which is the healing energy exists on the planet, our Earth. And we were just talking, I will give in the beginning just a little bit summary of what we talked about in case just you forgot the main idea, and then we proceed. So on the planet Earth, there is particular places where well known in the past and until maybe the last 200-300 years, they used to call them the sacred power spots. These sacred power spots were known to give a healing quality effect. When people start to sit there, staying there for a while, they were able to feel ease physically, and they could also easier connect to what they knew as a part of their existence, which they called the higher dimensions. Today, some of us, I believe most of the participants in the Congress, they believe and they know that we are not only this physical dimension, that we have also the higher dimensions we call vital dimension, emotional dimension with many sub-dimensions under the emotional one, the mental one, and the spiritual one. The energy of these places were actually one of the main factors which kept civilizations of the ancients very long time. For example, the civilization of the Egyptians, which, as you know, last few thousand years, and now it's 2,000 years ago, but before Christ was something between 5,000 and 10,000 years. Some of the researchers extended the time of the Egyptian civilization not only 4,000 or 5,000 years before Christ, but even up to 10,000, because the Great Pyramid itself, it's built, they say 3,000 years almost before Christ, and it was not possible to stand up in the morning 3,000 years for Christ, and all of a sudden they have all knowledge with which they can build the pyramid. So it must have started long time before. So what I want to share with you also the start of this science as the developer of it is Dr. Ibrahim Karim. He's an Egyptian architect, and he was in a visit to France where he was able to get a bunch of mini books about the science called radiesthesia. And this science of radiesthesia, they were making a lot of researches in the 30s and the 40s of last century, and they were then able to also develop some researches until one of them actually passed away because he was using particular forms known by the ancient Egyptians. So that lead us to the point and the question, does the Egyptians knew about a specific power and energy emitting from the shapes? The answer is yes, and they had two types of shapes. Some of the shapes they were developing by observing nature, and these shapes they developed and designed were emitting the healing energy they needed in the religious rituals and in the daily life. And the other shapes they were developing to use it for the mummification. And because these shapes, they were able to emit a specific radiation, able to dehydrate the body. Dehydrating the body is very important part of the mummification process. These shapes, they were using them also in the tombs to protect the treasures inside from the thieves, because by marking the walls with these shapes and putting figures emitting this radiation quality, we have a name for this quality. We call it the vertical negative green quality. And in the beginning of the last century, they developed a term called the curse of the pharaohs, because the researchers, once they started to open the tombs and discover the tombs, some of them they died just after entering these tombs weeks and months later. But actually, this is nothing, not had to do anything with cursing, but it's just you were exposed by mistake to these forms in the tomb, and they didn't know about the effect of them, and then they suffered from the problems weeks later. One of the first two researchers who were started to try to develop using these Egyptian ancient forms, he passed away in the 40s, and because of this, the research stopped completely from the 40s to the 70s until Dr. Ibrahim Karim find their researches and collected these documents and started to figure out and thinking how can we benefit from these resources and developing shapes who are not harming but only beneficial. The researches lasted for about 45 years until he, in the 80s, 90s, and in the end of the last millennium, he started to show us the research's results. And he was able to find specific forms which he designed, and in the designing process, he was imitating simply the design principles of nature, because he used to tell us that we are not with nature, but we are nature. As a human being is not with nature, but we part of it. And he also used to teach us that we are not living on the earth, but we are living in the earth, because the atmosphere is part of the planet. At the end, the science of biogeometry was able to benefit from the existence of the power spots, and using the developed shapes Dr. Karim designed to recreate this exact type of energy emitted in the power spots. And these designs and these shapes and forms, when we use them to harmonize a space, whether it's a building where you work or a building where you live, it is depending on the fact that shape is a frozen piece of music. Shape itself, it's a resonance which is frozen in dimensions and measures. And the shapes we are using in biogeometry, which is emitting this type of quality, is actually able to go in resonance with the harmonious energy emitted by the power spots. So when you use these shapes at space, you are emitting the same type of quality of the power spots. And when you emitting these qualities, they got in resonance with the same exact quality of energy emitted by the closest power spots. And because of the law of resonance, you slowly start to create a power spot at the place where you are living. And the hazardous sources of energy we have today is, like we all know, the in age of the information, the devices, appliances, the handy mobile antennas, and there is something which is from nature, but we started to forget about it since 200-300 years, which we call geopathic stress. And the qualities of the energy emitted by the electricity, the electromagnetic field, and the quality of energy emitted by the appliances we have at home, plus the existed geopathic stress, they are going in resonance together. And by going into resonance together, then you have a stress on your biological systems. But when you start to change the vibrational quality of these sources by using the forms of biogeometry, then the healing energy is emitted and it will correct the qualitative effect of these different harming sources of energy, and you start to have the same feeling you would have if you would be sitting on a power spot somewhere. Do you have any questions until this point? So,
you can go on, Hesham.
if there is any questions, we can stop me, because then
Well, people can type them in the chat if you just have the time to answer the questions. So people, it's better for them to write them in the chat and you will answer right from the chat window, okay? You can read them first and then answer if people will ask you, okay?
Okay, so let me share with you then some of the slides. I'm trying to share with you the screen I have.
Is this bad internet connection on your side? Sometimes your voice is not stable.
I have just read a note from Elizabeth that there is interruption.
Yeah, sometimes it's interrupts, sometimes.
So then hopefully we can proceed. So just still trying. Possibly the sharing is not working properly. So if you see the screen of my laptop or
Yeah.
not.
Start screen sharing.
I actually started, but
no, not yet. In the Zoom, click the share screen. It's not yet there. We still see only your face, not the screen. Try once again.
So hopefully
yes,
now.
Yes, it's going.
Good.
Yes, geopathic stress, right, and cancer.
So the slide here is showing us that the scientist and researcher Gustav von Paul's one was known to detect the geopathic stress areas, and he was entitled to check in specific villages in an area in Germany, because it was detected as so many cancer cases in these villages. And the interesting thing about the result of his research is that 80% to up to 90% of the cancer cases, they were located in about 10% of the space he was checking, which gave us the idea to think about that one of the main reasons of cancer cases that it's related to the space where you live, to the geography where you spending your time. And this scientist, he actually suffered himself at the end of his life from cancer because of, at that time, he did not have relationship with the using the healing energy of the power spots, but it gave us an indication about the background of disease like the cancer and its relationship with the geopathic stress. So the geopathic stress itself as main hidden danger is also responsible of most of the types of illnesses and diseases we have, and also not in the phase of pathology, but also when we start to be in a condition of sub-health, that the disturbance as disturbing sleep and headache, not feeling well psychologically, all these conditions which are before falling sick, has to do with not harmonized space where we spending the day or where we sleep. We can see here that the geopathic stress and the lines crossing in a field is one of the reasons, and this is known by the farmers also, that there is areas they know that it's not properly giving, it's not fertilized, it's not giving good result when they spend the whole year then giving their efforts. And here we can see in this slide that the tree itself, it's trying to skip from the harming energy emitted by the geopathic stress line. And the other slide is also showing much more extreme condition. Then we can see from these different colors that it has different lines, and the bad luck for this tree that it's exactly on the crossing of different lines crossing at the same spot. But here by this slide, I want to think with you about what would be our health condition if we have such spots in place where we sleep. Because so many researchers have shown that the organ which is affected by cancer in our body, when you check the bed where these people sleep, you find that there is a node, there is crossing exactly in their bed where the organ was actually disease, was cancer. So there is clear relationship between this and that. Plus, there is also another phenomenon at hospitals that doctors, they could recognize that there is some beds, they call it that it's trouble in the result of the treatment is very slow in specific beds, but it doesn't have to do with the bed, it has to do with the area where this bed is located, which means that it is possible that just by moving your bed 50 centimeters right or left, you can change a lot. The science of biogeometry, when it's using different shapes to create the energy quality of the power spots, it's different than other types of treatments where also people using shapes to reach the healing effect. Because the difference is that when you use the shapes to emit healing energy, and you are falling into the term of dosage. It means whether you have the organ you are treating hyper active or hypoactive, and here you need to be accurate in giving a specific dosage to heal this organ. But when you're using the principles of science of biogeometry, you are actually not the healer, because we call ourselves the doorman. We are just the doorman. We are creating the healing energy, and when it's resonating with the higher dimensions of the human being living at space, then this connection between his physical body and his higher dimensions through the emission of the healing energy, it's causing something we call the centering effect. The centering effect is the result of being exposed to this healing energy by these forms, because when you expose to it, this energy is not working by giving a dose. It's working by centering or correcting the default you have in your in the energy you are exposed to, coming from other different harming sources like the geopathic stress we talked about. So if you would go to a power spot to sit there for 1 hour or 1 day or 1 month, you will not suffer from any overdosage like when you take medications. So this is one of the important difference between the effect you enjoy when you are in a power spot where you are not in danger from overdosage, comparing when you use a modality giving you energy in a dose. The other special manners of this kind of energy, that it is, we call it, it is beyond time and space, because when you are in contact with this type of energy, you will not be in a frame of specific time, because when you are in contact with this energy, you could think about something happened in the past within the influence of this energy, and you could correct the way how you look to some traumatic incident you suffered from many years ago. So it is not, and then the present would change by changing the past. So this energy is actually not in the cage of the time. This energy could be in resonance with any human being, and it is not to be, it is not difficult for this energy to reach any element or any human being or any place on this planet, because it is traveling by a speed which is faster than the speed of light. The energy of the power spots is actually the cornerstone of biogeometry, because the biogeometry is simply using the principles of design in nature to create specific forms, angles, and using specific numbers. These are, because they are designed with the principal designs of nature, then they come into resonance with this treasure we call the energy of the power spot. And by coming into resonance with this power spot energy, then you create the vibration condition of the power spot in the place where you use these designed forms. And by using this at space, you, like, instead of going to the power spot, you created the power spot here at your place where you live. This is actually what we are doing the whole last few years, if there is a need for this by one of our you can see here in this slide that what we have seen before on the open field with the tree, it's exactly the same story in a bedroom. You can see these lines, and these lines are so frequent that they are almost each 2 to 3 meters. You find different lines crossing from the north to the south, from the east to the west, and in the other directions too. So the possibility and the probability that you have knots here and there, it's very high. If you have a mirror in your bedroom, so you need whether to cover it or to harmonize it with an angle, because the mirror is reflecting these energies and will make it much more intensive. The same idea here, but this is the whole flat, and you can see that in all corners of a flat there is this type of energy running. When we started to use electricity, then the geopathic stress as natural type of energy started to be much more dangerous, because it's resonating with the same frequencies coming out of electricity. And by this, these lines started to be more harming. And since then, when we had started to have the electricity, the story took different direction. Some of the people calling this the dirty electricity, because the human being and all nature creatures, they have electricity, but it's different type of electricity. It's not having the electromagnetic field, the harming one. And we always remind that as younger the human being is, as more vulnerable for the effect of these different types of energy. I remember that I showed this slide before, so try not to use a mobile phone near from babies, because it will disturb their nervous system for a long time just by exposing them to the phone call, or making a phone call close to them for just a few minutes. Pregnant women are also to be considered that this would affect the baby and would affect them, because this kind of energy coming from the geopathic stress or from the appliances is also putting the biological system under high stress. Then here, this is an area which was harmonized by Dr. Karim in Switzerland because of the mobile antenna they were putting in the church tower there, and the results were fascinating. In just 1 week, the complaints of dizziness and concentration disorder and impaired vision, headache, and some people even started to sell their houses. They started to enjoy their life again just in 1 week of working in this place. We called it then the community of biogeometry, the miracle of Hamburg. Now I want to share with you the story of the ancient Egyptian monuments. We know that the Egyptians built so many obelisks and temples and statues. And by thinking about the statue of Ramses II, or any of the statues which are in hundreds in the Egyptian museum, then we would ask ourselves why the Egyptians made so perfect statues in very perfect proportions, and why they were erecting them, putting them in specific places. Imagine if you would put your hands near from the level of one of the chakras we know in our body. Like first one here is the spiritual one, or the one in the middle, the heart one. We were taught that by just putting your hands on the level of the chakra, it opens the chakra and making it more in balance. Means that the body of the human being itself, it's including the secrets which making this body able to communicate with the higher dimensions and this type of healing energy. Because the human body created by the one created the universe, we believe, and the human body as not the emotions we have in ourselves, not the ideas, but I'm just talking about the form of our body, how our body designed in the forms, that the form of the human body is adopted and created by the same design principles of nature that the power spots which distributed on Earth, making us in harmony when these power spots are activated, are the same like the chakras in our body, harmonizing our body, and these chakras are like power spots in our body. So if we wanted to help these chakras to be at balance and flourishing and activated, whether we go to a power spot, then the chakra will be in resonance with the energy of the power spot, or we use our own body as a creation in a form able to resonate with the higher dimensions and this healing energy, because it's including these higher dimensions, by, for example, activating any chakras by putting our palms right and left on the same height of where the chakra is supposed to be. Or if you just raise your arms on that level, that way, then, and I invite you also to make the experiment having this position and making measurements. Definitely you will need to put a bio device on the top of you, then to measure your fingers, while your hands, you need someone to help you with this. But it is interesting for me, and I will try to have the posture of opening the chakras and seeing if this position will make a difference in the balance of my chakras and the alignment. We say that if you feel even lazy to raise your hands like that, your arms like that, to harmonize your chakras, or to put them chakra by chakra at the level of the chakra itself, then try to take a cup of water, but empty, and put the cup exactly at the place where the chakra supposed to be, and check how the chakra, because the energy of the chakra says like fire, then this will be circling and moving and activated around the form you have put on your body, I mean the cup of it. Then we were taught that because of the human body has this magnificent proportions, and with these proportions of the human body, it's able to communicate with the higher dimensions, that the reason the Egyptians build these statues, that they build the statues, if you remember, and if you visit the Egyptian museum or have seen this in some books, they looked, because they were, some of them were the statues presenting the pharaoh himself. But definitely the pharaoh did not look so perfect like the statue. So, but although each pharaoh looked differently, but the statue representing the pharaoh was always made in a very exact, perfect proportions. And because the statue here was not meant mainly to represent how the king, how the pharaoh looked like, but because the statue itself, with using the perfect proportions, is started to be able to communicate with the higher dimensions, vitality, emotional, spiritual, and so on, and the sub levels they have. And that means that the body, or the form and the shape of the statue itself, it has also chakras. So if you have a statue, small or big, but with perfect proportions, you have to know that this statue also has energy centers, although it's not like a living creature, but because the statue has the proportions of a perfection of a human body, it's also come in resonance and in communication and in information exchange with the higher levels of our being and the higher levels of the power spots and the earth. And this led us to think about, is it right or wrong that in a country like Egypt, they transported some temples and transported some statues from where they were erected to somewhere else? And the answer is no, it's not good idea, because the statues were not just, and the obelisks also were not just put anywhere. They were looking for powerful power spots emitting the healing energy. Then they put on the power spot the obelisk or the statue with its perfect proportions and with its chakras, like the chakras a human being has. And this statue or the obelisk was working to enhance and amplify the signal coming from the power spot to be emitted in much more bigger area. So when you take an obelisk from Egypt, put it in somewhere else, like in France or in the USA, then it's not only you derooting the obelisk because it was not here anywhere in, but it was standing on a power spot, and where you transported it, it is other quality of this piece of land you have erected the obelisk on. And the second common effect, that all the sensors of the power spots and the sensors of healing in our body and the statues and the other obelisks are actually disturbed by just transporting one simple obelisk from one place to another place, because it is all like weaved together in like a net. And this let us imagine how some of us would, without possibly without not on purpose, but how you could disturb and damage this whole constellation they have made. The pyramid itself also, it's not built anywhere. It's built on a very powerful power spot with specific configuration of the perfection of nature law of design. And it is connected with other power spots, like the power spot where the Sirius used to be and the Orion at sky. So it's a planetary grid between the pyramid, the power spot at sky, and the power spot on the plateau of Gizeh where the pyramid is built. So this is where we can see the location. If some of us is able to cut into resonance using the pendulum with the space of or the area where the pyramid is built, you can detect clockwise, strong clockwise rotation from that spot. So by using this healing energy emitted from the power spot through using the forms and angles created in a project like a farm, you could see that the shelf time is extended by the fruits grow in a harmonized field. And harmonizing a field like this is really very uncomplicated. It's mainly by using colors, because the colors for us, it's specific wavelengths and quality. And we have explained last year also one time how the angle is equal to a quality, because when you used to experiment at school, this the glass prism experiment, and the light going through the prism. On the other side, you have seen the rainbow colors. According to the angle, then you have the different colors. So in color is a quality, the quality is an angle. So the angle is a quality, and the form is collection of different angles together. So the form is mixed between different angles. and the form here is a frozen note of music at the same time, because music, like you know, is resonating and exchanging information with the universe. And the same, if you have a specific shape designed with the consideration of the principles of the creation and the universe, then you are like writing a note of music. You can see the difference if there is healing energy at the field, if there is the vibration of the power spot quality, the difference to the field which is not treated with this. Water also, and I know you had today spoke about water, so then we speak here just from the point of the energy water can transfer and carry if it is moving in a specific angle. If we would use a specific angle, which is the 135, angle 135, in a design, this angle is actually the angle of the octagon. The octagon is 8 times 135. If the water is moving through this angle, it will be harmonized, because this angle is emitting harmonious energy. And this experiment they made, they used salty water, almost seawater, but the seawater was able to give the sweet potato fruit on the right side, the biggest one, although it's salt water, just by compensating the salt content in water through embedding and emitting harmonious energy at this water they used. The other chapter and part of biogeometry, it's not forms, it's just, we call it biosignatures, it's just 2D configurations, forms, or actually we draw different shapes on a piece of paper, or you have it printed on a piece of metal, and specific forms we have and shapes, we call it the biosignature. It's part of the biogeometry. It's coming into resonance with the same shape in our body where the energy is flowing. Like here in this slide, you can see the energy flowing in the heart in this shape. If you put any shape or even drawing the same on a piece of paper and close from the heart, then with the law of resonance, the same configuration, the same drawing will come into resonance, and it will enhance the energy flowing into the this is not a meridian, this is the energy pass in the organ due to doing the function by this specific organ. So, we have heard from Dr. Konstantin Korotkov that some people are able to contacting or exposed to the sun, that they like using the sunlight as food for themselves. Actually, I did not have the chance to meet someone practicing this possibility, but what we want to say that the because I don't have myself an organ who could transfer the energy of the sun to be food and nutrition for my body. So I need an external organ, and the external organ doing this for me are the plants. And because of this condition that I'm needed to this external extension organ, plants, so we always say that harming environment, and part of environment are plants, is like exactly harming one organ of my body, because plants are my extra organ I need to transfer the sunlight to give me the nutrition. It's how just to see the importance of realizing and always being in contact with this fact that we are nature, not that we are not something else, and we are dealing with nature. So I will be. So I just have a look to any question. I see the question about the Ankh resonance of shape. The Ankh, just if some of us did not see how this shape of Ankh looks like, the Ankh is like a cross, but the upper part is like a knot. So this form was always held by the priestess in the ancient temples, and also sometimes by the pharaohs themselves. The Ankh itself, we call it the key of life. They call it also in the ancient Egyptian history, the key of the Nile. So the Nile for the ancient Egyptians is equal to life. So the key of the Nile, of the key, or the key of life. It has not to do with Christianity, because they were using this before Christianity a few thousand years earlier. But the Christians, as they started to live Christianity, and it was not easy for them to show this, they were using the Ankh instead of the cross, but they meant it to have to be the cross, and so nobody can arrest them or put them in prison at that time. The question about the significance, how important this is, the symbol of the Ankh, which is almost looks like a cross, it is related to the main directions on Earth. And for us, ancient Egyptians, actually, north was as good as not exists. For them, is not like today, mainly north and south, but for them, the main direction was the east and the west. For them, north was something primitive. They didn't have to do a lot with it. So east with the sun rising, and the west where sun set and the life after death. Do you use BioWell to measure geopathic stress? Definitely you can do this, but for me as practitioner in biogeometry, first I discover where the lines are and where the knots, because the knots are always emitting much more intense kind of energy, which is the harming one. So what I can do, what I'm doing is sitting on that. First I make measure for me before the exposing myself for a while to this knot, and then I sit on that crossing of the lines, and I make another, but not for long, just for 2-3 minutes. Then I see that the stress caused by the energy of the geopathic stress on that knot, or this crossings is visible on the measurement of biowealth. This is actually clear to see the emotional pressure, how it's increasing. I was going out of the norm, and also the finger emitting is less balanced, and so on. Right from the ground till one height, the ground will be geopathic stress. This is a good question too, because sometimes we are living in first floor in a separate building, or there is high house where we are living in a 5th, 10th floor. Geopathic stress, you would measure this energy even if you are in the 10th floor. The geopathic stress lines are 2 types. One is vertical, from the ground floor to the 10th, 15th, 20th floor. How as high as you go, you will find the lines. And there is also other type, which is horizontal. Horizontal is also always almost each 2-3 meters. So if I'm harmonizing a house of 2 levels, I have to check the horizontal lines in the 1st floor and the 2nd floor. But by the vertical ones, I check in the ground floor, and I'm just making a check. On the 2nd one, they are always going up the same place, the same line. If I harmonize them down, so mostly they will be harmonized in the 2nd floor. This geopathic stress can also increase because of the radiation. You mean the radiation of the electricity? Exactly. So this also a very good question, because like I said, since we started to use electricity at home, and in the last 20-30 years, you can confirm that what you are using of electricity and appliances at home is increasing, not decreasing. They are emitting the same frequency. We call it vertical negative green and vertical infrared, both. And by the law of resonance, if anything is emitting same frequency and the same vibration, the same wavelength, the same angle on the baseline, then they're coming into resonance. So it shows the importance of much more how we have to harmonize the geopathic stress lines, because they are now 200% more aggressive than 50 years ago. I hope I did not miss any questions up there. Okay. So the problems of the environment today. So we have all heard about the global warming, and they were giving us reason for global warming, reasons like too much industry, too much pollution in the air. Some other, they were talking about the methane coming from the much bigger quantity of meat we are producing today. I'm not arguing with them, it's fine, but we believe that the main reason for global warming is the electromagnetic field we have today in the atmosphere of the Earth. So because electromagnetic field is energy, and it has thermal effect. So as much, if you would shut down the electricity at home for just short time, you will not only feel calmer, you may feel it's cooler, because the electromagnetic field is heating the air remarkably. The electromagnetic field also is not main reason for the global warming, but the cold vertical negative green radiation coming from the cable wherever the electricity is running is having a dehydration effect. That's why ancient Egyptians were using it deliberately in the process of mummification because he needed to dry the body. Without consent, they take the brain out and the organs out, but the rest needed to be dehydrated. So there is dehydration condition in the atmosphere of the Earth, on Earth where we live, due to the electromagnetic field increasing. And dehydration here means that the life force and the vitality we used to have, we have less of it. Less vitality, less life force by dehydrating our bodies because of the electromagnetic field. So, some more questions. So the target of biogeometry is simply, instead of making the atmosphere of the Earth and the Earth a killing cocoon, is to make it a healing cocoon, simply by erecting, enhancing the power spots, which are the main treasure we have on Earth. And like I said before, the ancient civilizations, they last for thousands of years because they were aware of the existence of them, they were using them, and they were living close to the power spots, and they were amplifying the energy coming from the power spots to the whole villages and cities they were building. And it's not very ancient knowledge. Paris, Washington, Cairo, they were designed with the consideration of the power spots. So we're just talking about missing information in the last 200 years or more. So the holographic configuration between power spots and the higher dimensions we have is possible due to the resonance coming by the perfection of the proportions we have in our body form. So we don't need to think it's something difficult or far from reaching. The spiritual world of the past, it was not something like we think today, that spirituality, it has nothing to do with practicality. These people who were living in the ancient civilizations, they were very practical because the spiritual rituals they were making almost on daily basis, it was a very connected with the practical needs. So, for example, you have seen in a lot of icons of Christian time, and you have seen a lot of pictures where the saints were holding their right hand that direction. Have you seen something like this in any of the icons? So people think that this is this finger, it's pointing to God, but it's not meant to be something as a religious ritual. This is because this position, if you put it that place here, it is directly, instantly emitting healing energy, which is the most simple way how to do something for healing. Some cultures in the past, they were pushing the top of their mouth with their finger, with their tongue, to create healing energy. But interestingly, it will not work if you're using your left hand. It must be, because I think Dimitri was using the left hand, right? So, but really, when we use the pendulum, we're using for biogeometry, we can detect if the pendulum simply is rotating clockwise, then you are in condition of healing and vitality with whatever you are in contact with. It must not be something you see with your eyes. It could be something you think about. So whenever I think about Dimitri, I have healing energy. Thank you, Dimitri. is a good friend, and also Irina, a very good friend. So thinking just about people you like very much, you love very much, it's creating the condition of resonance between you and them. They must not be in front of you. Also, I will be very happy if they will come to visit me. But by thinking about the friends, then you have healing energy coming for free. So things for free today is very, very wished. And try to put your right hand finger that position, very simple, look, that way, here. And use a biowell to check how your scan results looks like with this position, on that, how you're going to do it technically. It's easy. Use your left hand, you can put it, and while your hand is here, and then with the help of someone else, you can, fortunately, the biowell is not so heavy, so you can move it to measure all your fingers and look to, but don't make a hole of your neck, just put it so close to here. So, and the very interesting thing for me, because biogeometry is actually my main passion, and biowell and bioelectrography. When you have, if you would have a statue, a wooden statue, with the arms and the hands and the head are just with axes, you can move it a little bit, so you can rise. So if you would put the right hand of this wooden statue, that position, the statue is not only healing him itself, but by healing itself and its chakras, it's healing everyone in the room. Imagine if you would if you detect a power spot, which is sometimes so small as a head of a needle in your room, and you put the statue in this position on the power spot at your room. So he's getting power spot energy, and he is harmonizing itself with the power spot energy and with its own position. And then how intense the healing energy you will get if you are in the same room. What I want also to say that when you want to do some easy steps before being a biogeometry practitioner, to harmonize your space at a simple way, I'll just remind you with some few points. Possibly I talked about them last year, or maybe you forgot, maybe I didn't say everything about it. If you would come to the cable of your laptop, TV, all cables you have at home, you just, if you can see this easily, I just using this side because this is the closer one, but I'm normally will use the other end. So imagine this is the other end. And you make a knot like this, right? So you disturb the electromagnetic field. And if you have, you know, the pen with the marker, the white marker, or the corrector, sorry, the white corrector, you can just make 9 points with a corrector, leave 5 centimeters and make 16 points. This very simple step is protecting you from the electromagnetic field from this cable. Simply. And if you use any pendulum, it must not be the biogeometry pendulum, the natural pendulum. Most of you, I think, they have experience with using pendulum. Go and resonance with the cable before you treat it, and see if your natural pendulum is rotating clockwise, which will not happen because it's electromagnetic field and harming you, and then make this treatment. Very simple, but just take a minute. And then move your pendulum forward and back. This is a natural position, and see how it will rotate. I can bet with you, with whatever you like, that it will rotate clockwise once you have both the 9 points, space 16 points. Experiment it at home. It's like playing science. To all cables, if you want to be the best at your class, Go to your main electricity panel. By the entrance of your flat, there is a box where the buttons serving the whole flat, right? Do the same on a piece of paper and stick it between the buttons. 9 space 16. 16, you know it better than me, 16 has to do with the golden ratio. Because the golden ratio is one of the universal constants. The 3.14 or the 1.618 is universal constant. Or there is something not very known. I would like to share with you. Something was known by the ancient Egyptians. It calls the cubit, Egyptian cubit. The Egyptian cubit is 5.236. 5.236. Do you know that the dimensions of the Great Pyramid is in cubit? Some cubits on the wides, and because the whole 4 sides are the same length. They are cubits. I try to remember how many cubits. Cubit is 1 cubit is 1 meter 23 centimeter 6 millimeter. And the chamber of Cheops, the pharaoh of the Great Pyramid, the chamber of Cheops, it has all the universal constants. Why? Because these universal constants are resonating and resonant, talking, communicating with the healing energy at the universe and on Earth. So they have all the constants at this chamber. The 3.14, the 1.618, the 5.236, and the meter. The meter, by the way, is universal constant. Do we have here any people from France by coincidence? If there is, I don't want you to feel offended to tell you that the French did not invent the meter. Sorry, they were the Egyptians. So I will tell you why. The French thought that they find the meter in 1700 and something. But I will tell you a very short, interesting story about the ancient Egyptians. Sometimes I did not believe that they are my grand fathers and mothers. They were looking for a constant measurement to measure with it between themselves. They used this and used that, and it was not constant because in the different places in the Egyptian country, this fruit was big and small. This branch was big and small. So we're looking long for constant to measure with it everything. You know what first constant thing they used, and it was really working perfectly? The drop of water. That if you put on a surface, like glass surface, a wooden surface, a drop of water, fresh water, not salty water, it will build a circle. The diameter of the circle is a centimeter. And they called it the royal finger. The centimeter, Egyptian invention, by observing nature, the drop of water everywhere, and experiment this. Drop a drop of water, fresh water, on a smooth surface at any place. It will build a circle of diameter of 1 centimeter, royal finger. Then they spoke about the royal hand. It's not my hand for sure, it's their hand. It was the decimeter, the 10 royal fingers, 10 drops. Decimeter, 10 drops, 10 royal fingers. Then 10 decimeters or 100 drops made the meter. So they called it the royal leg. But not each pharaoh has the same leg like the other one. But at the end, 100 drops of water is 1 royal leg, 1 meter. So the 4 constants, they were by them. Why I'm going into the universal constants? Because they're all the universal constants giving us an idea about how these people were aware of how to resonate with nature. Power spot, healing energy. What we do to come, if you have a radio and you turn the button, there is frequencies. This frequency giving you music, the other one giving you Dimitri, the third one giving you Irina, the fourth one giving you. Everyone is talking through a specific wavelength. The wavelengths of healing energy, they knew about it, and they find it out the royal constants. So there is a meter, and there is the phi and the pi and the cubit. By the way, it's something personal. I will tell you, I'm building in the desert in Sinai, started to build the building for someone running a piece of land I have there. It's still desert, but I put extra the 4 universal constant in the building. Each measurement is whether a meter or a phi or a pi or a cubit. You can half of it, you use half of it, or you can have 150% of it. It would work the same, it would emit the same. The other point is that when they use this in the chamber of the king, where his soul should be traveling after his death, after they put his body in the chamber. So his soul should be traveling through the shaft of the pyramid, which is with the royal constants built on a power spot, connected to a power spot in a planetary grid with star was Cyrus, and he is traveling, and to help him in his trip with his soul traveling after death to the other world, they wanted to make this trip easy, so they were using all natural principles in his chamber to guarantee the complete full resonation between the healing energy at sky and the one on the earth. I have here a question about the geopathic stress. You get to find out about the geopathic stress in my home. There is 4 cases of cancer in the building. Sorry for that. But 2 of them passed away. My son sleeps on the same lines where his father and uncle used to sleep. How can I contact you? Okay, this is would be easy. We can if the Dimitri and Irina would allow, you can give the email address. You can contact me for this information. But his question is, bring me back, because we were talking now about the healing energy, the beneficial one, and we'll talk back again about the geopathic stress. If you have find out that there is problem, an issue in the bed where you sleep, so you think there is a geopathic stress. Classically, if we don't know about biogeometry, we will move bed, right? To avoid this, to be at least not sleeping over the cross. But there is something else. If you would put a router on the line, then the router emitting the harmful energy quality being on the geopathic stress line will work exactly the opposite than what the obelisk with its perfect proportions and the statue with its perfect proportion on a power spot. As good as power spot with a statue in working together, the router on the geopathic stress line will work exactly the opposite, and it will emit these qualities of the line to your bed. So escaping from the problem is not helping enough. So we need to solve the problem. Because I'm not there, I would like to be there, but I will tell you something you might try to do yourself. Use a natural bending. This, because the point is, Dimitri, I cannot ask them to have this position day and night, unless they want. Use the natural bending. and take and go to the line or to the area where you feel disturbed or you think there is a disturbance, and move the pendulum and go in contact, but just for not more than 5 seconds, because it's harming. 5 seconds and go and skip away. Go in and skip away. I don't stay more than 5 seconds in communication with a line because it caused me headache and my bones in my hands feel hurting. So I have just to go in and out fast. So definitely your pendulum will rotate anti-clockwise because you are in contact with, now we are talking about applications. So hopefully you have, you are interested in this. The pendulum will rotate anti-clockwise because you are losing vitality by this communication with this type of vibration coming from the line. We agree? Then be ready with the most simple way to harmonize the line, which is using numbers. If you have played as kids with the small glass balls, I don't know how you call them, just so small out of glass, or you can use anything looks the same. Number of bends looks the same. Number of sticks of wooden, anything looks the same, repetitive. And put one piece on what you think it's the line and check. Still anti-clockwise, so the number one didn't harmonize. Put 2, 3, 4, until the pendulum starts to rotate clockwise. This means that the emission coming from this group of whatever the thing is, but must be the same on that line, this group of what you have done on the line is in resonance with the healing energy, the life force of the next power spot, wherever it is, and is able to call the healing energy from the power spot, from where it is, by this 4 or 5 balls or 4 or 5 cups, whatever it is. I want you to discover what number could change the vibration qualitative effect on you. Thus, once the pendulum starts to rotate clockwise, when start to rotate clockwise, stay more than 5 seconds. Stay 10, 15, to clean yourself from the energy came into you by the beginning of the experiment, and to enjoy the new bursts of this line, because this line is like a child screaming, disturbing by screaming. But at the end of the day, it's a child. When you teach this child to sing with its voice instead of shouting, then I want you to listen to the music of the line when it started to be harmonized. And then it is safe for you to sit and to sleep on it. When the rotation changed from anti-clockwise to clockwise, this is the numbers. This is easily. Hello.
Yes. Hesham, yeah, well, it's my son is already has come to take me back to home.
All right.
So he thinks that I'm working too much on a weekend.
I think you're working too much also. I share your son.
Okay. So Hesham, thank you very much for your presentation, for your inspirations. And
I'm sorry for being late, but just here in Switzerland, we are dreamers. We think the whole world is having just the Swiss time because the whole world like the Swiss chocolate. This is just a manifestation.
Ah, really?
When you eat a lot of... Yeah.
In every country, there is an excuse. If you come to India, they will say that they have Indian stretchable time. So
I'm not different fashion in this case. Good.
Every time is a good time. Any time is a good time.
I would love to go to India anyway.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, well, we didn't spend too much time on that on the small pause, but we had the opportunity to make some questions and answers whilst you were not present. So it's all good. It's all good. Thank you very much for your inspirations and some interesting ideas about what kind of experiments to make. Well, in fact, we have different ideas in our BioWell community of different types of experiments, and as we have seen during these 2 days, people are experimenting with many stuff in many different spheres, and that's what makes BioWell an awesome tool, because we can apply it in psychology, in consciousness studies, in sports, in medicine, if somebody wants to, in just life coaching and many other things. And we can go to also the space measurements, the sacred places measurements. These experiment by Elizabeth with the EMF neutralizers, again showing the effect of the these cards with the use of the BioWell and Sputnik. So such a vast field of application of BioWell, and that's, you know, that's an interesting thing to measure too.
Can you see, Dimitri? I have seen here Mr. Life in Yoga. He has very good.
Yeah, well.
So it works.
Why not? Why not? I'm an open-minded scientist. I will test it myself too.